This episode is sponsored by Whittles, ice lollies made from fruits and veggies, no baddies. Welcome to Next of Kin, the podcast. I'm your host Emma, a British expat, toddler mum and business owner living in Dubai. Join me for candid conversations about expat motherhood, business and everything in between. I've invited some incredible guests to join me this season who you are really going to want to know about. So let's jump straight in. Today I am joined by my very first returning guest, Lisa from Lullabies, who I'm sure that you all already know. But if you don't, then listen up, because Lisa is the first person that I mentioned to all of my pregnant friends. You may well remember I did a podcast with her all the way back, I think it's episode 6. We talked about her background as a paediatric nurse, what it was like working in Saudi, and back then her main focus was the sleep coaching. Now, I have a very long list of people that I would like to be guests on this podcast, so I don't usually invite anyone back twice, but since we last spoke, Lisa has become a fully certified lactation consultant. She's offering baby massage classes, as well as her Well Baby clinic to get free checks and advice. But one thing that I think we're really missing out on in Dubai is the NCT classes that all my friends do back home. It tends to be where they form such strong friendships that take them into their new life as a mum, let alone all the advice that they're getting. Lisa has now teamed up with other professionals to bring you the most well-rounded antenatal classes that I really wished that I had when I was pregnant. When I spoke to a newly pregnant friend recently and she said, tell me all of the people, all of the accounts that I need to follow, the first person that sprung to mind was Lisa Lullabies. So if you are pregnant in Dubai, you need to know about Lisa. We first met when we recorded the podcast, actually, back in July 2023. And I honestly don't know what I would have done since then without Lisa. She gets so many frantic voice notes off me, whether it's because Bonnie's ill or I just need a bit of advice. And she is now a good friend to me. So I am so excited to reintroduce to you my friend Lisa from Lullabies. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to share with you a delicious and healthy little treat, Whittles popsicles and ice creams. You might remember I mentioned them before when Bonnie became obsessed with their pops. Well, now I'm stocking the freezer with them for myself. You don't have to be a kid to enjoy Whittles. If you are craving something sweet but healthy, Whittles has got you covered. Each ice lolly is around 50 calories and their creamy ice creams are just 111. And the best part? They're made with real fruits and veggies. No artificial nasties, no weird ingredients, just the good stuff. Whittles was created by a local mum who was on a mission to find snacks that ticked all the boxes. Healthy, convenient, and something both mums and kids actually want to eat. My current go-to is the mango coconut flavour. Trust me, it hits the sweet spot without the sugar crash. And exciting news, Whittles has just launched their own website with free delivery and 20% off for their first month. So no excuses, treat yourself and stock up. Visit thewhittlefactory.com and follow them on Instagram at thewhittlefactory to find out more. Lisa, welcome back to the podcast. You're my first return guest. How are you today?
Very good, thank you, my lovely. Very busy, but very good, as all mums are, I think.
Well, since we last talked, you have been... Actually, when we last talked, you weren't certified as a lactation consultant yet. So you were mainly focusing on the sleep side of things. Obviously, you had all the experience as a nurse, so you could help with lactation, but you weren't certified. So what else have you been doing since we last spoke?
What have I not been doing since we last spoke? So someone said to me recently that they felt like I had rebranded myself as a lactation consultant by accident. And I would agree with that. There was no conscious thought or effort in doing that. It was just another thing that I could do because I spent so much time with sleep families talking about feeding, talking about nutrition. So yeah, obviously the lactation consulting. I also am now doing nurse and nanny education and a little bit of light nanny training. Although for the real health and safety stuff, I then send them out somewhere else. I've recently done my first aid training, which obviously I've done for years in the UK, like years and years. But here I've recently done that to enable myself. Nikki's also done it, who I partner with, to enable us to offer first aid to parents that are attending our antenatal course, which brings me on beautifully to the antenatal course, which was is my passion project, really. We felt like that there was nothing almost NCT-like out here for parents. Mm-hmm. There was the standard antenatal classes that you go to in the hospital, but that very much focused on information giving. It didn't focus on friendships and having people around you going through the same thing at the same time. And I obviously had my son during COVID, and my NCT WhatsApp was an absolute lifeline for me, as I'm sure it was for them, because they got to ask me all the breastfeeding stuff when there was no health professionals coming out. And I just kind of thought back to that and thought, I want to make something like this here. So that has been my passion project, really, is just, the antenatal courses is our big thing at the moment that we're really focusing on and making it as good as we can.
And you're doing baby massage. You've got baby massage.
Everybody always says to me, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I do this, and this. And then I'm like, there's something else. I know there's something else. So yeah, baby massage, which has really surprised me, actually. And when I first started Lullabies, there wasn't that much for mums and babies, whether it's because the mat leave is so short here, but there wasn't a huge amount. Obviously, there was the mum folk who were one of the first after COVID to get started, but I look at now and there's just so much for mums. There is so many other baby massage classes out there, and I by far was not the first. But I just think it's really interesting because every class that there is offers something different. So some of the classes are very aesthetic, very calming. Anyone that has been to one of my baby massage classes will tell you that is generally not what they come to my classes for. They come to spend one-to-one time with their baby, no phones, no nothing, no interruptions, but they talk. It's just often I have to interrupt and be like, ladies, let's go to the next stroke now. And if they see me, they see me. And if they don't, they don't. I actually had 2 ladies transfer in from another class. And I just asked, I was like, what made you come to mine? And they're like, well, the other class was lovely. And the lady that taught it was lovely. But she just really wanted to teach us baby massage. And we just wanted to have a chat and learn a bit of baby massage. And I was like, yeah, completely get that. Because while, yes, the main aim of the class is to teach you baby massage, it doesn't have to be done exactly right. Any touch is better than no touch. So if you only pick up 75%, sometimes 50%, because you're busy chatting to the mum next to you or across the room, then that's okay because you've got something else out of it. And I think people come to pick my brain as well. All things breastfeeding. Yesterday was my last baby massage class. Is it Tuesday today? Yeah, of this cohort. And I looked at 3 ladies' breasts, checked some latches, checked mastitis. It's people come for that angle as well.
And I think that's so important, especially in the early days when you've got a newborn. Because I remember being desperate to get out and go to some classes, but nothing started till they were much older, really. Yeah. When I had Bonnie, I didn't manage to find a class for when she was younger. I tried an exercise class that was just awful. But also in those early days, you don't know if the baby is going to play along and want to be massaged. They might just want to feed the whole time or sleep the whole time or scream the whole time. Yeah.
Like they absolutely do. One question I get quite a lot, and it makes me really sad because it makes me feel like I'm not very inclusive when I have to say no, is can I come with my husband? And I keep meaning to say, to do a Saturday class. But I just never get around to it. Weekends are very precious. I do go out in emergency breastfeeding situations. You might ask, what is an emergency breastfeeding situation? And it's when someone's on day 3, they've got home and there's no help. There's no health visitors. There's no midwives to call out unless you want to spend a lot of money. And so a lot of mums say to me, can I come with dad? And I'm like, no, I'm really sorry, because we do it in a place called The Hood, which is a really relaxed, casual, it's like a mum's co-working space. I know you have some of your clothes there, Emma. Actually, a mum bought an outfit the other day while I was there. She either bought it or said to her mum, I've bought this. So she may well have bought it online. And it's just a really relaxed, kind of cozy, intimate venue. And usually when people say that, they mean it's really small. It isn't really small, but it just is it's a space. And I usually have about 4 mums breastfeeding at any one point, and I think it would be fine, but I think it would just change the dynamic a little. And the chat, let's
Yeah.
be honest, the chat when mums get together is very different when mums and dads get together. So, and mums
Yeah.
need to have that space to be able to talk about the things they need to talk about.
And also the dads that come to these kind of classes are often a little bit awkward. That's what I found. They're sat awkwardly like, am I meant to be here? Someone's
Yeah.
breastfeeding. Oh my God, where do I look?
Can I join
So I
in
think
this
you're doing the right thing.
conversation?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So we don't
Yeah. I love
sadly
that.
have dads, but it is on my list. And I actually approached the dad mile about doing something with them. But as it does, life goes this way, that way, the other way. He works, I work. So it's on the list. It is on the list.
Well, I think you've got enough on your plate. So, and I know what you're like. So I know this list of other things you want to do is really long. But if anyone doesn't know so far, Lisa's background is as a pediatric nurse. So this is why you are the first person that comes to mind whenever any of my friends get pregnant and they're like, Emma, who are the people I need to follow, the people I need to know? I'm just like, Lisa Lullabies. She's got you down. Like, you're the person that I voice note when Bonnie's ill, aren't you? Like, what's the temperature that I meant to freak out at? When do I take her to hospital? Like, you know everything. You're the person, especially for those early days. Let's touch on the breastfeeding now, because I had that at 5. You know what you said about needing to be called out in an emergency situation. For
Yeah.
me, it was that 5 days
Yeah.
postpartum, and I was just in so much pain. And Rich took one look at me and like called to get a midwife package that probably cost quite a lot, but I literally just had those tears streaming down my
Yeah.
face. So what are the most common messages you're getting from mums, or problems you're getting from mums when it comes to the breastfeeding?
So there is a really, really big one for me that comes, and it's often it's the lack of antenatal education, which is also why we decided to start Birth and Beyond, because a lot of the questions that mums were coming to me with were stuff that could really easily be solved by some antenatal education. Now, I will say your brain goes to mince when you're pregnant and when you've had a baby, right? So some of what we teach might not be retained, but we expect that. And as part of the Birth and Beyond package, we do quite a long time of virtual WhatsApp support. And I found that really, really invaluable. So initially, it's the antenatal education. Now, all the hospitals do antenatal education classes. But usually, and there are a few exceptions to this, and it's the ones you would expect that are the exceptions to this, because they're known for being exceptional. Mum in a Mum's group actually said yesterday, anyone hired by X is known to be like the best, you know. But the majority of them are just a lot of you sitting around a desk being educated. And I sometimes think antenatal classes are not as much about the parents and, as cheesy as it sounds, empowering their journey, as it is about teaching mum and dads how to be good patients. So I just think that we fill that gap. And I've had some really common questions lately, which has been interesting because it means we need to incorporate them into our class. I had one mum contact me in a panic. She was like, my breasts feel like they have pins and needles in them. She's like, what's going on? And I was like, aha, that is what is known as your letdown feeling. Not every woman gets it, etc., but it's perfectly normal. I had another lady contact me yesterday, and she was currently still in hospital at the time. I have a relationship with her outside of this. And she was like, I think I've got mastitis. I'm only day 3. I think I've got mastitis. Now, you know, because of the very expensive midwife package that Rich booked, that is absolutely normal in the early days. You know that now. And if you were to have another one, you would know exactly how to treat that.
Yeah, I didn't pack my nipple cream to go to the hospital, and that was my...
Oh, coconut oil all the way, incidentally, for things like nipple cream and things like that, but we can get into that later, I think. But yeah, my big questions are usually things that could have been resolved with good antenatal education, or just good support when you get home, because there's no health visitors here. The community midwives don't really exist. There's packages from the hospital, but it's not the same. At home, I had health visitor involvement with my son think until he was about 3 months old. I think she just actually used to quite like coming round for coffee and a bit of cake, because I was a crazy, I'm sure you have no difficulty imagining this, but my second night home from the hospital, I'd been kept in extra because they'd discovered a heart thing when I was in. And my second night home, so I was actually in for 3 nights, I think, in the UK, which is unusual, I was cooking a roast dinner for everybody. And my in-laws were like, no. I was like, fine, I can totally do this, it's fine. And I've got a picture of us all sitting around the table eating this full fancy roast dinner with everything from scratch, and Benjamin at the table in his little like high chair bassinet type thing. I used to bake cakes, I used to bake bread, and I'm sure the health visitor just came round for some cake and some tea. But I was under the services for I think 3.5 months, because he had prolonged jaundice. So I was seen every 2 weeks for 3.5 months, which I know is unusual in the UK. But it was there, whereas here it's not. They go home, and people that, if you're lucky, might have been able to keep a plant alive, or a dog or a cat, their first baby, suddenly have to keep this little squirming thing alive and without panicking.
Well, that's part of it, the panic, because the midwife was great and she came round and she gave me a few tips, but a lot of it was just setting my mind at rest that it was fine and it was normal, and whatever I was experiencing it was all a phase. And it's just having someone to talk to that gets it at that stage, isn't it?
100%. And I just think it's such a lack in provision of service here, because we are in a private system, because every hospital does its own thing and effectively is a business. I mean, don't get me wrong, we all have to get paid. Yeah. I have a portion of my time that I very much dedicate to, right, I'm not going to get paid for this. And I know that's fine, because actually these people need this and I need to be able to give it. That is the nurse in me. Even though, I mean, I am registered as a nurse here. Some people would argue that I'm not practicing because I'm not doing hospital nursing. I would argue intensely that I am practicing, probably even more so, because I'm effectively acting as the health visitor as well as the nurse educator. So I have a portion of time that I keep, and I do the stuff for the people that need it. And the rest of the time, then obviously, we need to get paid. Everybody needs to get paid. But there's generally a difference between big corporates and smaller businesses.
Okay, can I put you on the spot then? Because you mentioned about coconut oil, did not know that. So what if you could, within like 2 minutes, give us a little breakdown of everything we should know going into breastfeeding?
I thought you were going to say everything you should know about coconut oil. I was like, yeah, I can totally do that. No problem. Everything you should know about going into breastfeeding. 1, you need nothing but yourself, the baby, and your breasts, quite simply. Don't buy loads of things. We live in Dubai. You can get anything you want in 15 minutes. And if you don't live in Dubai, you can send your husband to the shops. Physical shops still exist, number 1. Number 2, you are going to get engorged breasts. 100%. When your milk comes in, I was trying to explain the feeling of this to someone the other day. It's like having rock hard melons on your chest, but it's also like, you can't describe. If I asked a Scottish person to describe what iron brew tastes like, they couldn't do it. Same way you cannot really explain that feeling until you felt it. So 1 and 2, 3, coconut oil. Coconut oil is your best friend. It is your best friend for pump flanges. It is your best friend for sore nipples. It is just your best friend, full stop. You can use it on the baby, assuming there's no allergies anywhere. But it literally, if it's safe enough to eat, it's safe enough to go on parts and babies. Next one, you might not always get the latch right. That is very, very normal. Okay, baby is learning, you are learning. And I get mums with so much guilt saying, I'm not doing this right. And I'm like, of course you're not, because you're both having to learn. Okay, and you might need a little bit of help with that. One thing I do probably 70-75% of the time when I walk into a house is I see a baby, use my phone as an example here, a flat baby and a mum hunched over trying to breastfeed the baby. The first thing I do is turn the baby's tummy to mummy. That is usually the very first thing I do, because that really helps the baby's latch. Like, it's much easier for you or me to drink this coffee sitting up rather than round the side of it. It's just the positioning is a huge thing. What else? People will tell you that breastfeeding shouldn't hurt. Does it first? does it first. You get a little bit of tenderness and things. Nobody is used to, generally speaking, having something hanging off their nipple 24/7. So there is an element of toughening up that happens there, a bit like when you get new shoes. So often it will hurt at first. If you get to broken, bleeding nipples, cuts, lots of pain, then you want to be giving someone a shout to come and help you. And it's always better not to leave it. It's better to get someone in as soon as you can, because then we can help fix it and prevent further trauma. Okay. Everyone should have their baby checked for a tongue tie. Everyone, because more and more babies have tongue ties now. Are we just diagnosing it more, or do more and more babies have tongue ties? Who knows? I see a lot in baby massage classes, babies where mums have stopped breastfeeding because it was too much. The pain, the soreness, the mastitis, the fussiness, the fighting, the feed all the time. I had one recently who I was like, yeah, they've got tongue tie. And she was like, I knew it. And she cried. God love her. And she's like, I knew it. And I was like, have I seen him before? Have I? And she's like, no, you haven't. I was like, okay, phew. And I think as well that comes into that is mother's intuition. If you think that something isn't right, keep pushing it. And in this instance, that mum did. And sadly, it was too late for her breastfeeding. But for next time, do you know?
Yeah.
And it's because we're all learning. And essentially, there isn't that community support, and there isn't that quality of community support. People can call themselves anything they want here. And so many people are not regulated. I, for example, sorry, I finished breastfeeding now and gone on to something else. For example, wasn't going to bother licensing as a nurse. I wasn't. I just thought, I don't need it. Like, it's fine. But I took the very expensive decision to get registered as a nurse because I wanted to feel like I had some accountability and governance, not just to myself and the families that I work with, but to an external body. I just wanted that, not credibility, but it lets people know that they're not coming to someone that doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think sometimes there are, maybe I'll have to cut this out, but sometimes there are mums who don't want to go back to work and they decide to set themselves up as, say, like a sleep consultant. And it's just because they had an easy baby. And so they're giving tips and it's like, no, like, no, you can't, but you actually are registered as a nurse. Like, you're bringing so many years of experience into this.
I don't think you do need to cut this bit out, actually, because it's really important. It drives me insane. Now, there are some excellent sleep consultants out there who haven't got a nursing background or who haven't, but they've had 6 children. Now, on that point though, just because I take my son to the doctor, yes, I'm a pediatric nurse, but taking him to the doctor does not make me a pediatrician. Yeah. Just because I breastfed my son does not make me a lactation consultant. Yes. What it does is it gives me a different insight. So every experience we have plays into who we are, but it doesn't make you the expert because you need to have the theory background. And I never thought I would be a lactation consultant. I'm always very honest about this. Never in a million years did I think I would be a lactation consultant or a sleep consultant, ever. But here we are. And yeah, partially that's because my entire opinion changed on breastfeeding after I had my son. And yes, I learned lots of little tips and tricks from this viewpoint rather than that viewpoint. And it does change how you view things. We were very lucky with Benjamin's sleep as well. I didn't become a sleep coach because I struggled with my son's sleep. I did it because I thought it would be interesting, to be honest. And I thought at the point I wasn't going to register as a nurse. And I thought, well, that's such a waste of 20 years of experience with mums and babies to not use it. And it's developed into so much more. And I love it. I'm genuinely so much happier than I was in the nursing world. I'm busier for sure, which is a lot to say for a UK trained nurse that she's busier, but I'm much happier.
Well, let's get into birth and beyond classes, because that's the whole reason that I asked you to come on here. And that's because I had seen that there's definitely a gap in the market here for the NCT-style classes. I did antenatal classes at a hospital and they were great. But I look at my friends who did NCT in the UK and that's like their mum friends for life now. Yeah. Like that really helped them transition into motherhood because I mean, me and Rich had moved to Dubai, started making friends with like, the party people, then got pregnant and were like, oh, we don't have any friends. And
Yeah.
people who were mums and dads seemed like older than us or more mature. And I think a lot of my friends felt like that as well. Like, how do I just go and make friends with like dads or mums? But actually, when you're all thrown in it together and a group together, you can really find like some such special friendships. And I feel like we missed out on that by not having that aspect. So tell me a bit more about these Birth and Beyond classes.
So I 100% agree. Those people will be your friends for life and your play dates and your like everything, because a bit of the bonus is if your baby cries, it doesn't really matter because the person right next to you's baby is probably going to cry the next time or right now. It really doesn't matter. Sadly, with our NCT group, we didn't get the chance to solidify friendships because we all had our babies January, February. And then it was COVID in the March, and in the UK, by the time we were allowed to like meet and be going out, everybody's mat leave was finishing. I was the only one that didn't go back to work in any way, shape or form. I was very fortunate in that respect. I was waiting for a job to start. And like you, I really feel that we missed out on that. I mean, so many people lost out through COVID, and everybody has their different story as part of it. And that was part of ours. We just didn't solidify those friendships because we couldn't. And so I understand very much what it's like to not have those friendships. But again, I'm in a place of fortune. I've worked with babies for 20 years. I know what's normal. I know what isn't. So when we do the Birth and Beyond classes, our format is Nikki does the first 2 classes, and then I do the second, and we run them.
Nikki is the fit midwife.
Fit midwife.
People will know the fit midwife from Instagram.
I forget she's the fit midwife because we literally talk every day. We had a meeting with an external provider yesterday, and she's like, hello again. I'm like, yes, hello again. Long time no speak, about an hour to be precise. So we have a really good working relationship as well as a friendship, and we're very aligned in the way we view things, kind of evidence-based, practical, as well as there's a lot of chat around spirituality and things in birth at the moment. And I think it's really important to recognise that a midwife, as Nikki is, when she is allowed to work to her full capacity, provides everything. They're medically trained. They can deal with an emergency. They can deal with any type of birth. And if I ever was to have another baby, one and done over here, I would 100% want Nikki as a midwife because she just is, sorry, Nikki, she's all over the place. She's like got so many projects on the go, much like me. But when she needs to be, she just goes into this kind of calm state.
Yeah.
So yeah, she does the first 2 sessions, which are basically all about the anatomy of things, because you can't understand what's happening if you don't know the background, both of us think.
Yeah.
So she does that, and she also focuses a bit on hypnobirthing, on breathing techniques, on exercises. I'm very jealous of Nikki because all she has to turn up to a class with is a birth ball and a mat, which I've usually left in the venue for her. She literally turned up with a birth ball and strolls in. Meanwhile, my 2 sessions, I'm coming in with baby baths and blankets and breast pumps, and I'm very
boobs. Plastic boobs.
Many boobs. many boobs. On that note, the nanny training I was doing the other day, some people know me for the massive boob that I carry around with me.
Yeah.
Someone was stress balling it, and we just heard this pop, and red slime erupted everywhere. So we now know what's inside the boobs, but it is no more, sadly. I've just got little ones that I have to order from Australia because, unsurprisingly, you can't get them here. So, yeah, sorry, digress. We divide the classes up in 2. She does the first 2 classes. They're 2 tours, 15 roughly each, and I do the second part of the classes. And again, I bring in a lot of the evidence-based practical stuff, safer sleep, sling wearing, co-sleeping, in the crib, breastfeeding, however you want to feed your baby, we cover it. There is zero judgment here. What to expect? I cover the mental health aspect. I cover a little bit about relationships, because actually that's one thing. People spend 9 months like, oh, I'm going to have this baby, in a state of excitement. My driving instructor, I remember from many years ago, said to me, I can teach you the theory, but you don't learn to drive until you're out on your own. And never a more honest thing you could say about parenthood. And so one of the big things I cover is the mental health aspect, because there's less stigma around it now than there used to be. People are much more open about it, but it can be a really, really tricky topic to talk about. So when we cover it, I just say, have this conversation before you have the baby. Baby blues are super normal. And for some people, that lasts up to 2 to 3 weeks. Just because it's normal doesn't mean it's not real to you when you're suffering it. Doesn't mean it's not okay to feel what you're feeling. So one of the things I always say, if you are really worried about your partner, have this chat prior. Have this chat where you've got like a trigger sentence of, if I am really worried, I am going to say, I'm really worried about you and I think we need to go see someone because I need you and want you to feel well. And just that trigger sentence, I do the same in sleep coaching. There's a key phrase in a trigger sentence, but in saying that sentence, it should hopefully be able to ground your partner a little bit and take away any, well, I can't believe he's saying this, or what is he talking about? Because you've discussed it and you've spoken about if this happens. Now, for me, I was super aware of that because I'm probably the first one in my family who hasn't struggled with some sort of mental illness, predominantly bipolar, amongst other things, but I'm the first one. So I was super, super aware of my own mental health. And so to me, you never know what journey or what struggles someone is having in the background. So actually cover your bases, like just chat about it prior. So for me, I was super worried, but because I was so aware of it, I was able, and I remember asking my husband, am I okay? Do you think I'm like, and he was like, you're fine. You're a new mom. You're fine.
And it's such a fine line with maternal mental health, because even if you're not clinically getting depressed or anxious, there is just so much going on with hormones and in your head. Like the one thing I always say is that I didn't get postpartum depression or anything, but I would hear her crying when I was in the shower and she wasn't even in the building. And I can physically hear that. Like, that's wild. That just shows how much is going on like in that brain, whether you are clinically depressed or anxious or whatever it might be or not. Like, it applies to everyone.
I swear blind, because I ended up in an emergency C-section after 28 hours of labour. Sorry, don't mean to scare anybody. I swear blind that I had a conversation with the consultant. John said, is it okay if I go off to the car park to put these things back in? And they said, yeah. By the time he came back, he got a pair of scrubs thrown at him and said, we're going now. And the consultant was like, I need you to sign this form. I'll explain it to you. And I was like, not do you know who I am? But I was like, look, you know what I work in. You know what I know. Let me just sign the form. Let's just get this done. I swear blind that I said that. John says, nope, you listen to every word that they said. And you honestly just make things up in your own head, and because it's real to you in that instant. And I just think, on that note, it's Maternal Mental Health Week this week. So I have a few things coming out about that on Instagram. And one of the buzzwords, if you like, at the moment is matrescence. I just think of matrescence. I mean, it's not a world eye-opening concept. We have adolescence, we have puberty, we have menopause. All these things have names, but the biggest hormonal and physical change you are going to go through, perhaps other than menopause, depending on how it goes for you, is having a baby. And there was no name for it until, well, the name has been around for a while, but it's only just really gaining traction in the mum circles. And it is the latest buzzword. But I just think if anybody is struggling with anything, go and look up matrescence. I've just put a blog out about it last night, because if nothing else, it gives you permission to feel how you feel.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just think that's invaluable.
Let's go to that piece back to the piece on friendship within the classes. So how many classes are there in total?
4.
Okay. And they're quite small groups. Yes. And you show up with your partner and you'll put in a WhatsApp group as well. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Amazing. And I think it's even more important because we're expats and we don't have our family here. You know, I remember the
Yeah.
first time that we were all ill, and I was like, oh my goodness, like I can't just call my mum to come and pick up Bonnie and look after her. Like, we don't
Yeah.
have that group. So it's so important to find people who are like family to you.
You just have to struggle through. I remember that the first time we were all sick together was
Yeah.
ironically after we moved here. We did not catch COVID in our lovely house with a lovely garden and a lovely village with a lovely green to go and walk around in and not see anyone. I mean, we would have stayed in anyway, but
Yeah.
no, we caught it in a 2-bedroom apartment in the Greens with no outdoor space apart from a tiny balcony. I turned lemons into lemonade there and potty trained Benj, which is insane because I felt so awful, but it was actually really good because I was with him, because we all had it, and I was with him 24/7. And those who have potty trained know that you cannot take your eyes off that child
Yeah.
for a minute, because if they wee, it's your fault. You took your eyes off them.
Yeah.
You didn't notice the sign. Sorry, but it's your fault. Like, that is your one job while you're potty training, is to keep your eyes on your child.
And Bonnie would go as soon as I went to the toilet. So I'd put her on the potty. No, she didn't need it. Then the minute that I was out of the room going to the toilet, she'd go. So you definitely, just have to take them
You
everywhere.
you cannot. Also with potty training, don't buy super expensive stuff. Just get the standard cheap potty with the insert that lifts out, because one of the things they love doing is watching it all go down the toilet.
Bonnie likes to empty it herself as well, so you have to see her walk over, sloshing it all over the floor. Yeah, fun.
That's why it's in Dubai, where you've got tiles and you just roll up all your carpets. But yeah, during COVID, we had no one. Thankfully, I came down with it first, and then my husband came down. So we were kind of like, Monday I felt okay, he felt rubbish. Tuesday I woke up feeling horrendous again, and he felt okay. And hilariously, every time Benj did anything in the potty, it was actually really good, because he worked throughout. I do not know how he worked throughout. So he would come through from the spare bedroom working at this tiny console table. He had to go and see a chiropractor after for his back, hunched over for 10 days. And he came through every time he heard me say, yay, he came through. And it was like we were having a little party every time. Credit COVID with some of our potty training success that we have. But the friendship aspect is insane, because nobody here, it's a very different relationship with another parent than it is with a friend that you had before you were a parent, or after you were a parent and they're not. The friendships change because the priorities just change. So we aim to keep our classes to 8 maximum. We usually keep it around 6, because 6 is 12 people, because we 100% encourage the dads to come. We want the dads there. And we do it in the evening, because here everybody works literally until they go into labour, just with the maternity leave situation. So we do it in the evening, and we do it at a venue that can offer drinks and smoothies and light snacks, so that if somebody hasn't managed to get anything to eat, then at least they can snack. And we aim to be done by about 9 o'clock, because otherwise people are just like so exhausted.
Yeah.
But the other reason we do it on a weeknight rather than a weekend is because weekends are so precious. Whether you're pregnant or whether you've already got your baby in family time, weekends are so precious.
Now, before we finish off, I want to touch a bit on the business side of Lullabies, because you have gone from working for other people, being a nurse for your whole career, and then you're now branching off by yourself. You're adding all these different strings to your bow, and you just said that you really enjoy it, but you're so much more busy. So tell me how you found running a business.
We recently got a nanny. Finally, right before Ramadan, we got a nanny, because I was like, I do not know. Benjamin was in nursery prior, so we had like slightly extended hours, and I was like, I do not know how I'm going to manage this, like finishing at 1 o'clock every day or whatever at 12:30. I was like, I don't think I can do it. So we recently got a nanny, and it is life-changing. I remember a conversation, I think it was with you, a long time ago, about nannies and things.
I've had lots of childcare stress on my end.
But I remember, I'm sure it was you, and we had this chat about people having nannies and feeling guilty about it. And I'm almost positive it was you that said, but we need to reframe that. We need to reframe that as feeling so fortunate that we have someone in our child's life who hopefully, loves them as much as an auntie would, or as much as granny would if she was here. We need that extra outside influence, and we need the breathing space. And I actually tell parents that quite a lot. Try to reframe it if you can. And I'm positive it was you that chat came from. And I've had to talk to myself about that, because the day I ran out of milk and bread, incidentally, we ran out of bread again this morning. The day I ran out of milk and bread, I was like, I can't do this anymore. This is not how I want to be. I'm not managing. And I'd had all these conversations with friends and in my own head. And I was like, we're getting a nanny. And my husband was like, sorry, what? Because I was just like struggling along, and he works long hours as well. And he'd known that I was struggling, and I tried to pick up some of the slack. But when I was like, we're getting a nanny now and I've arranged it, he was like, what? And I was like, okay, I had these entire conversations in my head. I'm not with you, which I am quite guilty of. So we got a nanny, and that has helped. That has helped give me some breathing space. I use the term nanny loosely because she mainly does the house, and she does Hello Chefs for us, living the Dubai dream with my helper doing my meal plan for me. And we're still learning. It's been an adjustment. But yeah, the business side of things has been really interesting. I did for a while have someone doing my social media, and then it's for absolutely, completely amicable reasons. She didn't come back. She needs to focus on life more. So I used to have someone doing my social media, and now I'm back doing everything myself again as of the past couple of months. And it's hard. I did a meeting with, again, an external provider yesterday, and he was like, so if you want to get your marketing team, and I just burst out laughing. That was hilarious. But it has been a massive learning curve. The social media, I write my blogs. My husband created my website for me, but all my content is mine. I do amazingly well at SEO on Google. I'm some sort of SEO wizard. I've only ever taken out one ad on Google, and it was for the Birth and Beyond classes. I occasionally boost on Instagram. But to be honest, Instagram isn't the be all and end all. Weirdly, Birth and Beyond comes through Instagram, but my sleep and my lactation definitely comes through referrals, and my sleep comes through Google. It's really interesting watching all the pieces knit together. And I think one thing I've struggled with a lot, especially recently, I don't want to say I'm at the top because I'm not, but it's a lonely place sometimes because you work on your own, and I'm a talker. I like to talk, in case you hadn't realised. But it is lonely, and you have to make some decisions that not everyone's going to like, and you have to do it for the benefit of your business, because if you don't, no one else is going to do that for you. And there is, like, you risk alienating people, and you can risk losing friendships, but actually you have to make the decisions that are right for you and your business. And another thing that I have learned, especially in Dubai, is the mummy industry and the baby industry is just so, not always, and you might need to cut this, but it is so focused around pennies. It's a lot of people don't have the best interest of the parents at heart. And I think I am very all about, let's promote local businesses, let's, do this, do that, do the other. And the amount of people that have said to me, oh, and how much are you going to charge for that? And I'm like, well, nothing. Like, it didn't even enter my head to do that. We did briefly offer sponsorship for the Birth and Beyond classes, and then it just wasn't me. So we stopped it very quickly. And actually, we would rather use that platform to promote local small services. And we only take 2 a class because we don't want every session to be about, like, oh, here's an advertising thing. But we would much rather use that to build relationships and to get the right things out there to mums. I know you did a podcast recently, I think, with Annie from Reloved.
Yeah, that will be the last one, I think, before this one goes live.
But she's coming along to the next class. And I just think that's such a good platform for mums, because everything with babies is so expensive. And I have definitely learned that about the baby world as a Scottish person who, if you give me 1 chicken, I'll give you 10 different meals. I have definitely learned how much is financial. And at the end of the day, we are all running businesses. And I just want to keep my human side in there. So Lots of things. I've learned so much more about Instagram than I ever thought I needed to know. I've learned about LinkedIn. I've learned about learning to market myself. And the hardest thing that I know, and I still don't do it, is that my time is valuable.
Yeah.
That I'm coming around to the realization that 10, 15 minutes where I say, don't worry, it's fine. Actually, that's 10, 15 minutes. I could be doing something else, which means I can spend 10, 15 minutes with my family at the weekend.
Yeah.
And mums very typically undersell themselves because they're like, well, this is just something I know. So of course I'm going to help.
Yeah.
But actually, it's taken me 20 years to get to this point. I literally, a few weeks ago, thought everything I have done in my life, this is very deep, but everything I have done in my life has brought me to this point.
Oh, it's
and
so
this
true.
is what I meant. And yes, I do it because I love it, but my family are at the forefront and should be at the forefront. And sometimes I kind of forget that a little bit.
Yeah.
Never forget that I have a family, but I forget that this is time I could be spending with them rather than 15 minutes that I've not been able to do something during the week. That's actually why one of the reasons we got a nanny, because in the afternoons I was doing 20 minutes of work and poor Benjamin was watching 20 minutes of YouTube.
Yeah.
And it was never just 20 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
And I didn't want him in an after school club because I want him, not every day, I wanted him to be able to come home and switch off because he's quite introverted.
Yeah.
So he comes home, he plays with her helper. And I mean, I taught her how to play Jenga and dominoes and things the other day, and I hear them, they have a great time. And so that was a decision that I was able to make for the benefit of my family. I just need to transfer that into the business world now.
Okay, last question, because we will end up chatting for ages otherwise. But just because there's probably going to be lots of newborn mums, lots of mums right at the start of their motherhood journey listening to this, and maybe they're in the trenches and worried. You now have a 5-year-old, so I've got a 2.5-year-old, and I definitely think it gets better. But tell me, what is mum life like with a 5-year-old?
Well, the first thing I'm going to say if you're in the trenches is honestly, this too shall pass. This too shall pass.
Yeah.
Utilize everything. If you have family, utilize them. If you have a helper, utilize them. Get a meal plan. You know, like if you're in the trenches, do all these things. It's about survival. It's lovely, but it also, it's the worst of times and the best of times, to quote a famous author. So as a mum of a 5-year-old, I'm not always the mum I want to be. I mean, yesterday I picked him up after school and noticed that the croissant that he'd had for breakfast in the back of the car was still in the car because I hadn't actually been home yet. And I was like, oh my Lord. But I was there to see him for swimming, his ECA swimming lesson. They're funny. They're really funny at 5. They're hilarious. Some of the things, I saw a thing online recently where this family were going through like a drive-through coffee, whatever, in the States. And they ordered their coffees. And then the little girl said, Mummy, can I have a cookie? And the mum said, no, you have cookies in the house. And she went, well, we have coffee in the house too, and you're buying coffee. The dad was like, oh, she's got a point there. And they say things like that all the time that just make me laugh. They also love to push boundaries. And yeah, sometimes that can be a bit, but it's life. It's what they do. They come out with some absolutely hilarious things about bodies. And we're teaching a lot about bodily autonomy. We've been speaking a lot about race and culture lately. My nanny has accidentally opened up some of those questions. But it's fine because it's been a good way for me to talk about them. We've always talked about the differences between men and women in the house in terms of both physically and culturally in the world. The glass ceiling, you know, like, I'm not going to lie, there was a part of me that when we found out I was having a boy, because I'd been convinced I was having a girl, so there was a little bit of like maternal grief in there, because you create this whole life for what you think you're going to have. And when we were in the scan and she said, do you want to know? And I looked at the screen and I went, well, that's a penis. My husband did want to know. But I remember really sadly the thing I thought after I'd had my like 12 hours of like grieving this make-believe world was, well, at least he'll never have to fight. He will never be blunt. He will be forthright. He will never be selfish. He will be self-interested. You know, he will never be aggressive. He will be stern. You know, he will never be all of those things that a woman will be. And I think...
Yeah, bossy, the leader, and
And I look at him as a 5-year-old, and it's actually a really, really fun age. I think the 2 to 3-year-old has been the most difficult. But again, I'm quite fortunate. I have a fairly compliant child. But I also think that's partially because we have always given an explanation for things. We've never just said no, there's always an explanation. And we have always maintained consistency. For the most part, my husband's better at this than I am, but consistency in the yeses, the can haves, as well as the can't. So if I say, yeah, you can have that tomorrow, I follow through on that. It's not, you have to be consistent. But yeah, I think the humor, the learning, that the sheer excitement that they have about things. He hasn't yet learned a poker face. So when he's excited about something, he just his little face, the imagination that you have to display as a parent. And I actually learn a lot from my mother-in-law about this. I hope she'll listen to this, because she'll be well trained. She's a teacher, also Scottish, and getting him to do his reading was a nightmare. And he's actually really, I know every mum says this, but he's actually really smart. He's way ahead on his reading and things like that. But getting him to do it at home was a nightmare. And he would come home with his reading book. Yeah, Benjamin knew all the words, could apply them in other situations. So it's getting a bit more inventive as to how we do things and how to make things fun, because everything has to be fun at this stage. Yeah, so mum of 5-year-old is interesting. It's the most fun yet, I have to say. But I found every stage fun and frustrating in different ways. Yeah. So I think it's just every stage passes. But yeah, feel very fortunate to have the 5-year-old that I do.
Amazing. Lisa, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, lovely. Pleasure. And I can now say as always, since it's my second time.
Thank you so much to Lisa for joining us on the podcast today. If you do want to get in touch with her, she's at LullibiesDXB on Instagram. Drop her a message. I know she's super responsive. And thank you all for listening. You can find me at nextofkin.ae on TikTok and on Instagram, or my personal account is at emmacoulter.insta. Remember, you get 10% off your orders on nextofkin.ae just for being a listener. You can use code podcast10. Until next time, take care.